So after I've made about 20 videos on the PMDG 737 over the last almost 2 years now, it's finally reached us. I've been flying around extensively in the 737-700 and my goodness is it a lot of fun. Now initially this was going to be a sort of first impressions video, but I think I've been flying around enough now for the last 2.5 days to basically turn it into a review. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. We're going to board this aircraft in front of you and go through all of the major aspects of what makes this, in my opinion, the best add-on for Microsoft Flight Simulator as of now. Now if you want to skip to the good bits you'd like to see, there are timestamps down below, but without further delay let's climb up and take a look at the Boeing 737-700 by PMDG. So if you couldn't work out, the one we're climbing up to today, as you can kind of tell from the livery, is the Boeing business jet. It's a private jet, but I've got to be honest, the one I've been flying around the most is the 737-700 standard version. I don't really know what you call it. It's basically the one that airliners use. It's the standard Boeing 737-700 in its passenger configuration. Now I'm going to keep it quick and simple. I want this video to be about 10 minutes long because I know there's plenty of long reviews out there, going up to an hour, which is great. It goes into great length in detail, but if you just want to sit and watch a good review quickly, then I hope this is for you. Let's get right into it. So we'll start off with the cockpit. I mean, just look at it. It looks fantastic. One of the most highly detailed I've seen in any flight simulator. Of course we should come to expect this with PMDG, and you certainly do pay for that, as of course I'll talk about later, but cockpit textures and modelling, bang on, 100%, they look awesome, there's no downfall here, it is fantastic. I'll be talking about system depth later and how everything works. I'm more talking about how the cockpit looks here. It just looks great, a 10 out of 10 easily. Now moving behind the cockpit door, we move into the cabin. Now because we've got a few different variants of the 737-700, it means we've got a few different type of cabin. Of course in the Boeing business jet, as you saw at the start, we have a sort of private jet set up with some very executive looking chairs and even a shower back there. And then moving back to the aft of the aircraft, we do have something that resembles more like a commercial airliner. It just looks good. Now it's not, I wouldn't say it's certainly the most textureless part of the plane. They've clearly spent more time on the cockpit, funnily enough, that's where you spend most of your time. And it's certainly not 100% reflective of real life, but nothing is. But this is one of the things they'll be improving as they go along to make it more realistic to the aircraft type. So the cabins, while good, they're not necessarily customised to each individual aircraft 100% and each individual livery 100%. So you can expect a bit of improvement here. Now we move outside and the exterior is just fantastic. It looks perfect, it really does. I do mean it. Modelling is fantastic, lighting interacts with the aircraft in such a beautiful manner, resulting in a realistic looking plane. You can really get up close and see the individual details. One thing I would say, where detail is lacking a bit, and PMDG do admit this on their website, is the landing gear bay and landing gear area. I think they could do a bit more work there, but that will be updated into the not so distant future. Overall, exterior is good for the most part. There are a few areas which could be improved, such as the landing gear bay and landing gear area. Getting up close to the landing gear, it does look a bit blurry, but aside from that, it looks very nice. Now we move over to what is probably one of the most important parts of any aircraft on Microsoft Flight Sim, the systems. This aircraft, I'm going to say it, I don't often say it, but this aircraft is study level. If you flew around on the 737 by Zebro over on X-Plane 11, then this will feel very familiar for you. It has done for me, which has resulted in a short learning curve. I haven't had to spend too much time reading the included manual or watching the video tutorials. But if I did, I would know I would have to spend quite a bit of time there, and I imagine those who are new to the 737 would do. Luckily for me, I was quite used to the Zebu. I got pretty sufficient with it, and although I haven't flown it properly for about a year and a half, it did come back to me rather quickly. I've linked to the checklist I use for both the Zebu 737 and this 737. Now there is a bit of variation, because the 737, 700 and 800 aren't 100% similar. But I use this checklist all the time to start up and basically fly around, and it does a perfect job. You could do everything you'd expect. LNAV and VNAV are immaculate. It's certainly a lot different to the A320NX, but once you get it working, autopilot is a dream. And of course it's ILS capable, as I can demonstrate here at Dublin. I'm performing an ILS approach into Dublin, although it was perfectly clear I could have done it by hand. It's always nice to test out these sort of systems, and it was great fun. This aircraft is study level, and you're going to have to put some time into it to learn how to fly it. Now, speaking of flying it, flight model, how is it? Well, actually, it's a really forgiving aircraft to fly. Now, I don't know if this is just a Microsoft Flight Sim thing, or maybe it's because I trained myself on the ZB 737. But it's actually a pretty nice aircraft to land. I was finding, after maybe 1 or 2 attempts, you could butter it. It's a really great aircraft to land. Now, if you're used to the 800, do remember this aircraft is slightly shorter. I found that out the hard way by flaring a bit too early. That results in, of course, a bit of a harder landing. But aside from that, it is a fantastic aircraft to hand fly. Personally, I think the best aircraft to hand fly on Microsoft Flight Sim. Now, of course, the whole kind of principle of a flight model is pretty subjective. Some people say it feels too light, some people say it feels too heavy. I'd say it's leaning on the lighter side if I was going to go with my opinion. But in all honesty, I can't necessarily comment on it because I'm not a 737-700 pilot. It doesn't feel that off to the point where I'd say it's not realistic. But I can't really comment here, to be fair. I just say it's a pretty nice flight model. It flies nicely. Ground services, I will come back to the ground after speaking about flying. This is what makes this aircraft really unique. PMDG have sort of made their own ground vehicle set that expands off the default Microsoft Flight Sim ground service set to include stuff that's slightly bizarre, like lavatory trucks and air stairs, of course, on the 737 out the front as well. You control it with the FMC, which you can see me doing here. Although it did take a bit of figuring out for me to work out how to use it. Once you've got it set up, you can really make it feel realistic. It's just incredible with how many vehicles you can get outside one plane, including a PMDG bus to load up passengers. I think that's just very, very smart. PMDG have pushed the boat out here. Now, sounds are what make an aircraft, in my opinion. And they're just great here, I cannot fault them. Of course, I don't fly a 737 in real life, so take it as you will. But I think they sound really good, even in the cockpit, fantastic. Lighting as well, as I already said, it does integrate itself quite nicely with Microsoft Flight Sim's lighting system, which is groundbreaking as it is. So you get some really beautiful photos when you get lighting in the right place. It just looks marvellous. I know I'm really bigging this aircraft up, and it's not perfect, and I'll tell you why in a minute. But there's still a few more things for me to go through. I spoke about learning curve there. I did write it on my list to speak about it now. But the learning curve, depending on your experience, could be quite short, or it could be very, very long. This is a study level aircraft, so you are going to have to put the time in, but trust me, it pays off. Luckily for you, PMDG of course include a manual and checklists that are integrated into Microsoft Flight Sim's checklist system. You can click that little blue eye and it will show you the things you need to touch or press or twist, whatever. Compared to the BAE 146, I haven't seen any issues here. Now, getting into the more kind of niche bits, if you want to install some liveries, you can do it via PMDG's Operations Centre, and there is plenty, stemming all the way from Southwest to Ryanair, Olympus Airlines to Alaska Airlines cargo variant. Because of course you get the cargo variant as well as the private jet variant included alongside the passenger variant, so you're getting 3 variants of an aircraft, although it's still the 700 series. Now, I imagine into the future, as PMDG say on these websites, installing these liveries will change the cabin in the back slightly to reflect what that aircraft would look like in the back. At least this seems to be something they're working on. They install easily, but it is an external bit of software, and I believe it's installed as you install the aircraft. Now finally, the last point I'm going to talk about reviewing it is performance. This was an absolute shocker. It's smoother than the fly-by-wire A320. It's perfect, minus a few Microsoft Flight Sim stutters now and then, which we all get when it's loading in new scenery. This is smooth. I was pulling I was pulling in a solid 30 to 60 FPS throughout my whole flight, which recently was London Stansted to Dublin. It is so smooth, impressively smooth, almost scarily smooth for Microsoft Flight Sim. That shows that the PMDG team have optimised this to an incredible level. Now, I know we've kind of ran over the 10-minute mark, I'd imagine, but let's talk about some of the drawbacks now. There are some features missing, including the electronic flight bag, or to you and me, the iPad. This remains in development and will be added hopefully by the summer in a free update. As I said earlier, they're also working on some new cabin models and landing gear bay interiors, and these updates will be added during maintenance updates. Any new features such as weather radar, which is an ASOBO limitation, will be made available within the 737 with free updates through the PMDG Operations Centre, I believe. There's a few bugs as well. Of course, it's a new aircraft, it's not exempt for bugs. I did speak about Microsoft Flight Sim stutters there. Performance is great, but you will find you get some long stutters, and it does take a bit of time to load in initially. Anyway, that's not really a bug, that's normally part and parcel. But definitely a bug is that at times you'll notice some of your displays will glitch with a sort of darker side, often looking like a triangle. I haven't experienced it myself, but I know some streamers have, and people on YouTube and people on the forums. PMDG are aware. Shall we wrap it up here then, guys? This is the best aircraft for Microsoft Flight Sim. Of course, final point is price. You do pay for it. You can pick it up on the PMDG store right now for $70 US, $69.99 to be exact, which comes into around 55 UK pounds. But with the fun you can have with this aircraft, I'd say yes, it is certainly worth it. The best add-on on Microsoft Flight Sim. It takes a bit of learning, but my goodness, is it worth it? It's an absolute blast. If you reached this far on the video, I'd like you to comment down below if you like or don't like the PMDG 737-700. That will show me that you are a true fan of all things flight simulation, because you've watched this quite long video all the way through, supporting me loads. I give it a final rating of 9 out of 10. Of course, it's pretty pricey, but compared to PMDG's last products, it's a bit of a bargain. And as I said there are a few minor bugs, but PMDG are working on them. Overall, it's a great plane, and I really enjoy it. Thank you for watching. Let me do a bit of admin here. I'd like to say a big thank you to my first class channel members. They get a shout out on the screen now. In addition, you can go to pilotstud.co.uk for a written review of this aircraft, showing you some exclusive screenshots on there, although by the time the video is up, I might not have got that up yet, so be a bit patient there. You can check out my Amazon affiliate links down below for all the equipment I use to fly, film and edit, but for me today, the PMDG 737-700 is awesome. I'll see you around. Goodbye.